So I was browsing Twitter this week, as you do, and I was horrified to discover what I believed to be overt racism being applauded on BBC's Question Time. I believe the talk is about the effects of Brexit and the impact on racism in general, as well as whether Britain is racist for having voted for Brexit. Here's the clip.
George, have you actually looked at the numbers? The UK is one of the least racist societies actually across Europe.
Oh, phew! Thank you so much! So I didn't get stopped by police sitting outside of my mum's house earlier this year. That didn't happen to me.
That's not what he's saying, and that's going to be a running theme here. He is saying you live in one of the most free and least racist nations on Earth, not that racism doesn't happen. And whilst it's laudable to challenge racism where it occurs, overblowing the prevalence of racism in British society and becoming a hysterical anecdotal wreck is not the way to address the issue, you smug panellist.
I should have just explained that to the police officers.
But they're talking about ending preferential treatment for Europeans, so we can take people from Singapore and Malaysia and Thailand to come in.
Oh, phew!
That's an open policy.
Can you hear the condescension in his voice as he completely dismisses the point the young man in the audience was trying to make? There is a smattering of applause here for this accurate statement, but just wait.
Get the woman waving there, and then I'm going to take 2 more points, then we'll go to another question. Yes?
It's funny that you're a white man saying that.
I apologise in advance to anyone who's sensitive to foul language, but Jesus fucking Christ, profiling based on the colour of his skin. The man has reasonable grounds here to sue the smug, self-satisfied cur for racial discrimination. But no, she goes on to laughter and applause.
You're a white man saying that there's no racism in this country.
Bollocks is he. The key adage of the left: misconstrue a statement, call someone ignorant or bigoted. He tries to respond but is quickly shouted down by the virtue signaller.
But how are you going to experience it? You're a white man.
Sorry love, but he is experiencing it right here, right now, in this discussion because you are literally making overtly racist statements. Let's not even get started on the myriad of programmes that advantage minority groups over the white majority, shall we? Let's not talk about the fact that exclusionary policies in places like university, for instance BAME only scholarships and women's only scholarships, directly exclude white men. Let's forget that in every category the most disadvantaged group, the group that is failing the most in British society, is white working class boys, where nothing is being done for them based on their race. There can be arguments made that white men experience different forms of discrimination, and racism to say being pulled over on the road, something which, by the way, must be done with reasonable cause, and if reasonable cause cannot be determined, then citizens have every right to challenge. But to say white men aren't racially profiled at all in society is not only demonstrably untrue, it is utter bullshit.
You're saying that British people are the least racist. Hold on, how am I racist? How am I racist? You're not the one walking down the street and being screamed at. That's not happening to you. You're not a young black man walking across the street being stopped by the police. Don't tell me to calm down. I don't need to calm down because you're not experiencing that. And that's why you don't think.
Alright, can we restore a bit of order here? The woman in...
The applause of people around this woman disgusts me. She is emotive but unhinged. Who is screaming racial abuse at her, or the panellist on a day-to-day basis? Who? It just doesn't happen. I live in London, and I've never witnessed this, even on messy nights out. I appreciate my experience is anecdotal, but there you go. I've been screamed at in the street. I'm sure everyone has, and usually the person doing it is a nutter who everybody looks at as insane. They're usually on drugs or they're drunk, and they will shout whatever obscenity of the day sounds best to them. The reason they pick on your colour, or your clothes, or your religion, or your voice, or your face, is because it's a very surface level insult. They will use the things that identify you as different to them as their primary insult. Sometimes they use racist language, I'm sure, but society as a whole decries racism wherever and whenever it rears its ugly head. There is no institution in the UK going, you know what, my employee yelled the N-word at someone the other day. Wasn't that a bit of fun? We should discipline him, but I guess we can just sweep it under the rug. It isn't that big a deal, and everyone hates those people anyway, if you know what I mean. That doesn't happen. If anything, our society is so systemically unracist that it goes too far in the other direction, where it directly advantages people who shouldn't be advantaged? That's a topic for another day. Going back to the main point that the poor gentleman in the audience is trying to make, though, the UK is not a racist place to live. Twitter has some interesting responses to say, and so I've brought the best and the worst. I wish common sense had prevailed, but the replies were about 50-50 cheering on the woman, 50-50 cheering on the boy. Tom Harwood, a rising journalist and political commentator, took to the fray to highlight why exactly this whole idea that Britain is a terrible, racist place to live is unconscionable, with a series of tweets I'll now highlight. The UK has the least unfavourable view of Muslims of any European country, polled by Pew Research. The UK is consistently more comfortable with interracial relationships than most European nations. All voters in the UK, regardless of political leaning, are more pro-diversity on average than most European countries. Britons are more likely to say diversity makes my country a better place to live than every other European country bar Sweden. Of course, that doesn't stop retards like Will Hardman here from saying lived experience tells us far more about racism than statistics ever can. Are you fucking serious, Will? I am sorry you live in a racist area, by your own admission, if it's even true, but are you telling me you think that everywhere is like that? The stupidity is mind-boggling. If you live in a racist area, Will, then move. Go somewhere that won't be racist to you. What's that? You won't do that? Why am I not surprised? Absolute bloody bollocks is lived experience a better signifier than statistics. You want to take issue with the specifics of the stats? Be my guest, but to say that stats are insignificant compared to anecdotal cases is ludicrous. I can make a ridiculous statement of my own, that lightning strikes people daily, and it needs to stop. The stats don't bear it out, but there was this one guy who got hit by lightning 3 times in a year, so that tells us more about lightning strikes than stats ever will. It beggars belief. Anyway, I've ranted long enough. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you on the next one.